Hey guys, Tech Agent, we're back. Here I have the Beyerdynamic DT770, one of the most important headphones ever made, and significant headphone for Beyerdynamic, one of the best sellers out there, and a very important headphone for Beyerdynamic in general because this is one of their most revenue-generating products apart from microphones. So the 770 has done a lot, and it has a fantastic track record of being one of the best sellers, one of the best values for what it does. It really is a class leader at what it does. So when Beyerdynamic launched the DT1770 at a price point of 600 euros or something like that, I was a bit disappointed because 770s have been affordable headphones that everybody, every small to large, any musician, any recording artist, anyone can afford easily without breaking the bank. So 770 has that status of being affordable, fantastic product. 1770 has a lot to live up to, so let's talk about the 1770 and compare it to the 770 in this brief comparison that I've been getting a lot of requests for. So let's talk about the 1770. First thing right off the bat, fantastic build quality. This is quite an upgrade. I don't like the design personally, but I think the build quality in general is quite nice. I don't like just the new headband styling and this lettering, which is just a print. This will fade away after some time. Just there are some design aspects that I don't personally like, but the build quality has been improved compared to the 770. Now the 770, although was never an attractive or never a handsome looking headphone, but at least it looked a bit utilitarian, understated in some ways. The Edition 770, which I think is one of the best looking headphones out there. I mean, there's just no comparison. Just compare them. The 1770 is just not as beautiful as the Edition 770, but that's irrelevant. Let's talk about the most important thing, that is the sound quality, and then we'll come to other things. So sound of the 1770 in my opinion has been quite an upgrade from the 770. The fidelity, first of all, is you cannot compare them. It's completely different league altogether. The overall response is much more linear. The high frequencies are not as accentuated as they were in the DT models. And overall, I mean, a lot of the praise for the Tesla 2.0 headphones has been that Beyerdynamic has changed the sound signature, of the new DT1770 and the DT1990, as well as the Amaron Home. So, a lot of people. So Beyerdynamic has been getting a lot of praise because of this new design, a new sound signature. I mean, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, overall, I think the fidelity in general and the detail and just the overall response has been improved. It's much more linear, and I think corrections wise as well, I haven't done much except the bass, which I think is not as not as extended as the 770. 770 I still think is more capable of some sub bass, and you can get away with the accentuation, get some real extension out of that headphone. But with the 1770, it's just not capable as the 770, which is just, I mean, it's just an inherent driver characteristic. The overall, I would say, Soundstage and imaging has also improved significantly. I would say it sounds very close to the T1 than any Beyerdynamic, I think, has reached, at least in a closed back design. It sounds significantly superior to the T5P, which was a closed back review, the last closed back Beyerdynamic I reviewed, and I gave it a pretty negative review for good reason. So, brief comparison against the T5P, there's just no contest. The 1770 is much more superior sounding, and there's just no doubt about that. One thing I want to talk about the 1770s is the bass is a bit bloated. This will improve after some burn-in, I think, but as of now, the bass is a bit bloated, and when it comes to high, stressing songs, the bass is completely confused. The impulse response is very poor on this headphone, and it's quite noticeable, audibly noticeable. So, not a big fan of the bass in general, but the overall rest of the spectrum is completely well balanced, and I think that's quite commendable. Beyerdynamic has done a really good job of making a headphone that you can listen to even after, even with no correction. Although I will obviously not recommend listening to it uncorrected. It's just not as good as it could be. Let's talk about the comfort of this headphone. I think the comfort has been quite overlooked on this headphone. A lot of people complain that the clamping force is quite high because the clamp on the 770 was 3.5 newtons, and on the 1770 it's 7.2 newtons, so it's almost double. clamping force, and a lot of people have been complaining about that, saying it's just too tight. It's not as big of an issue as people are making it out to be, especially with the new headband, which just has better distribution and better coupling overall. I think it's one of the most best coupling Beyerdynamics ever made, and that's high praise because Beyerdynamics in general do couple pretty well, but this new headband that they have designed, I think it's quite overlooked. I think it's really a fantastic headband, very comfortable. The ear pads are not as deep as the DT770 on the Edition and the Pro models. I think the 770 in terms of ear pad space is slightly superior. I think the pads in general are just slightly better, and I really miss the white velours. Black velours are just not my favorite, but I miss those pads of the 770, the classic white pads. But in general, I think it is a comfortable headphone and reasonably easy to wear, especially the velour. I haven't tried the pleather pads, and I probably won't ever. I don't like the pleather pads. So comfort is fantastic. Now let's talk about, in the comfort there is one very big oversight, which is again related to the features of this headphone, and that is the mini XLR removable cable. Now let me explain why mini XLR for Beyerdynamics is a bad choice. First of all, here's my Edition 770. I have done a mod on it. It's a 3.5 mm chassis jack mount. Now the reason I did not go with a mini XLR on this headphone is because of a very simple pointer, and that is when you wear this headphone, mini XLR sticks out almost this much, okay? And then the cable strain relief and everything goes. By the time it finishes, the cable has reached almost a couple centimeters above your shoulder. So that's quite a bit of space taken up just by the cable itself. Now with the AKG headphones, the K701, K712 and stuff, the mini XLR is designed in a way that the jack itself is in the middle of the earphones, on the headphones. That way, by the time the cable is done, you have a lot of space, and it's at an angle. It's slightly outwards, and that really is a very important thing. If the K7 had a cable exactly at the bottom, it would be horrendously uncomfortable, and that's what is happening with the 1770. I mean, because of this 3-pin XLR, there's just not enough space, and the cable that Beyerdynamic includes in the box is one of the most horrible cables I think I've ever felt. The original DT headphones had a really nice pliable cable, but the new 1770 cables are just stiff, horrendous. I hate them. I use my custom cables for this headphone, but I think the stock cables are just not good enough. They're just really bad. Another thing, why 3-pin mini XLR? Why not a 4-pin XLR? It just doesn't make any sense. They could have just given a 4-pin XLR. That way people who want balanced don't have to do anything else. They can just add a cable and they're done. So slight decisions made by Beyerdynamic, slightly I don't understand them, but if they had done these things properly, I think the comfort would have been even better. So mini XLR, I'm just not a huge fan of it. I hate it actually. That's why I don't use mini XLR on my Beyerdynamics, and one of the reasons I used a 3.5 on my Edition Beyerdynamic. So I don't know what to say about that. But overall, the 1770 is quite a nice headphone. I think it's capable of being a class leader, especially for the fidelity it offers. It's really quite a nice headphone. If you're a big fan of the DT650, I think you might appreciate the 1770 because the overall signature is quite similar, but the fidelity is improved. So I think it's a great headphone, especially for a closed bag. I think it's quite a nice headphone. The build quality is really nice. Price point, I'm not a big fan of. I think they should have cut down the cost in the accessories and launched this headphone under $400, at least under $500. That would have been quite an unbeatable value, because this $600 price point that this guy goes for, I just think is a bit too much for what it does. So I like the 1770 a lot. I highly recommend it. I think it's a completely worthy successor to the 770, which was a class leader for what it did. And I think it's a good headphone to have, and I'm glad Beyerdynamic hasn't discontinued the 770, because if they had discontinued the 770 and launched this at the $600 price point, I think this would have been a failure, because $600 is quite a lot of money for small musicians. Nobody wants to spend that kind of money on headphones now, in this current scenario. I really like it. I'm looking forward to testing the 1990 out, because I had a very brief moment with it, and I'm curious to see how different it is from the 1770, because I really like the 1770 a lot. So 1990 is next on my list, as well as the Amazon Home. I'll see you guys next time with a full review of the 1770 where I'll go, talk about the graphs and stuff. So that's it, 1770. I'll see you guys next time with more headphones. Take it easy, and like always, have a good one. All right.